Hi everybody, Alex Employer from Expert Forex, and in this video we're going to be looking at the critical robot trading skill of creating quality setting templates. Now this might be an area that very few traders are aware of even or have ever done before, so this might be advanced for a few traders. All I can say is it's a very important skill. You need to learn how to do this, and if it doesn't make sense at first, re-watch this video a few times. There will be another video where I actually show a practical example of that using the maximum lot trading robot, but it is important that you grasp the concept of using a setting test template. Okay, so let's take the example. You have just bought a brand new robot. Now you don't know anything about this robot, and what you need to do is evaluate it, test it to see if it's any good, and if it is any good, you need to find the most robust settings that you can use for forward trading of that particular robot. So you know nothing about this robot. So how would you go about it? So in our robot course, we actually cover the steps that you would take. So let's say you've got the robot. There it is, number one on the chart that you're looking at right now. You've got this robot. The first thing to do is to make sure that you have test data. So in other words, what you have is you've got this robot, you have no idea how to trade it, and the only way you can trade it is by looking back and seeing what worked in the past. But in order to look back and seeing what worked in the past, you really need quality data. Now I must emphasize, broker data is not quality data. It is in fact very bad data to use for testing. So you need high quality and high quantity of test data going back. So we've already covered test data in another video, so I'm not going to go into that. And let's assume you have the test data loaded in your MT4 platform. Then you need to go to the strategy tester and load that robot into the strategy tester. And the first step is not to optimize it, but to get to know that robot. So you would look at each setting, read the user manual, find out how each setting works, and you'd go through the whole robot. That way, get to know it. And you'd also run a test run on the tester to make sure that the robot is running nicely on the tester. So basically you'd get to know each setting that's in the EA, and by knowing the setting, how it works, how it impacts the whole process, you can then decide whether you want to test it any further. So now we come to the template. And let's talk about the template. The template is unique to the strategy tester. So you do not get this start, step, and stop. You don't get those columns in your normal EA input. You only get those columns when you are using the strategy tester. And the strategy tester is there to help you test the EA. So let's assume you know the EA very well, you know the settings pretty well, and you know how they relate to each other, and you now want to start testing to see which settings work best in the past and which settings are the most robust and provide the most consistent results. In order to do that, you need to test a huge number of combinations of the various settings. So in order to test those combinations, you would have to take one of these settings. For instance, let's take this target equity amount. Let's say you have worked out what it means, what the percentage means, and that you've decided that the lowest amount would be 5 and the highest amount would be 60. Now, there are ways of determining that. I'm not going to cover that in this video. It's pretty advanced, but you need to use your trading experience, your feeling of what is reasonable and what is not reasonable. But you can also let the tester let you know what is reasonable and what isn't, and I'll show you how that happens in the next video. But let's say you decide you're going to start at 5. You're going to test the next setting that you're going to test is 5 away from that, and you're going to stop at 60. So in other words, it's going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, right up to 60. So that's how the testing goes. And by clicking on this that particular block, you are telling the tester to test all those combinations for that particular setting. But now when you come to the next setting, you're going to be doing exactly the same thing. You're going to say start at 1, go up by 1, go to 5, and the tester will then not only test those, but it will test all the combinations between those two settings, and so on. And every setting that you look at, it will test those combinations. So once you start adding those combinations up, you could get to thousands or even millions of combinations. So, and that's where the tester comes in. It will test all of those combinations and tell you which ones are the best ones and which ones are the most robust, and so on. So that is the purpose of setting up a test template. Now, the results you get are only as good as the template that you've set up. So if you've set the wrong values here, you won't get the greatest results that you anticipate. If you're not wide enough with your settings, you're going to be missing some winning settings. So setting up the template, it takes quite a lot of experience sometimes, but also a lot of testing, because the template will actually tell you where you're wrong and where you're not so accurate. And I will show you that, and the ways we do that is by looking at what we call heat maps. But that's a subject for another discussion. All I wanted to make you aware of is the fact that you need to develop the skill to design test templates. So let's go a little bit further and look at that. So that is an important step, because after you've developed the templates, you then run the test, and you then get this huge amount of settings that come out, which you can sort in terms of the highest profitability or the lowest drawdown and that type of thing. And that's where the true value comes from. Now, if you haven't got a quality template, you're not going to get quality results coming out of your test run. So a quality template is important, quality data is important, and obviously you need to have a quality robot to start with. So all of what we're talking here is a quality approach to testing. There's no compromise. You can't just use any old data or any old robot or any old template. You have to try and get to the highest quality, because the quality you use up front will determine the quality down here when you start trading live portfolios. If you use bad data, bad templates, you're going to get bad results in your portfolio. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at, and I've covered some of these points already, is we're going to be looking at the role of a setting template, and then we're going to answer the question, what does a setting test template do? Where do we find lots of examples of test templates? So I'm going to actually show you. You don't need to always create them from scratch. There are hundreds of examples out there that you can just go and find, and you can then use those as your starting templates. And then we're going to look at how to create your initial template, and then how to refine your test template. So it's a whole process that we're going to be going through in this video, but that is what we have in mind. And let's have a look at the role of a testing template. So the set test template is basically a tool used in the testing process to find robust settings, alternatives that may work in the future. Now, the more alternatives you can create, the better your decision making can be. The more you've got to choose from, the more refined your drawdown statistics can be, your equity chart statistics can be, and that type of thing. Now, what a lot of people do is they just go for the result that's got the highest outcome, and that is by far probably the worst settings that you can go for. So selecting those settings is a topic for one of the future videos, and but this is the starting point. If you have a bad setting test template, you're going to generate bad alternatives. Very important. All right, it is a tool that can help you identify the most and least important settings. So in other words, you can actually get a feel of how sensitive the settings are. Some settings, no matter what you set them, will do nothing to the final results. Other settings, if you get it just slightly wrong, it will impact the results quite heavily. And this testing template will help you find the important settings and the not so important settings. Also, it's a tool where you can set the limits on what the settings should be. So in other words, you can be reasonable and you can say, look, for a stop and a target, when I'm trading, I feel comfortable with pips less than 200. So you don't want targets of 400 or targets of 500. You want to only limit it to 200. So in your test template, you won't ask for tests beyond 200. So the trader can actually use their preferences when setting up test templates. Okay, so here's a bit of what we've already said. It's a tool of the strategy tester. It allows the trader to select which settings to test and the extent to which they will be testing. So in other words, for instance, in this template, I haven't ticked the moving average period because it is not a sensitive one. It is a one that doesn't add much value, so I haven't ticked that one. 4 is a pretty good one, and therefore I'm not optimized. So firstly you can select which ones you're going to test and which ones you're not going to test, and then the ones that you're going to test, you can test the extent to which they're going to be tested. How many settings are you going to test? In this case, I'm testing 5 there. In that case, I'm testing 12 there, or maybe 11 or 12 up there. Here, I'm testing from 20 to 10, skips of 10 to that much. So I'm testing 10 variables there, and so on. So you can also determine, firstly, where it should stop, where it should start, and how much it must jump for every test. The goal, as I said before, is to identify settings that worked well in the past, not only the best results, but also the settings that produce the best equity charts, in other words, the most smooth equity charts, or the settings that produce the best heat maps. Now, heat maps is a subject for a video in the future. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you where to find lots of examples of setting test templates. Now, as you may know, we produce over 2,000 settings every month. And those are basically testing 2,000 strategies, either using the MT4 platform or the MT5 platform. And they are paid strategies and they are free strategies. So I'm just going to show you the free strategies, and I'm going to click here. It says up-to-date robot results and settings. So I'm clicking on there, and I'm going to go for, let's say we are interested in the trend trader. There's the trend trader. I'm going to go into the trend trader, and it has a whole lot of strategies there that I can look at, and this is a March 2022, so it's quite up to date. And let's have a look at those settings. So what people normally do is they go and find these settings. They say, oh, this one produced really good results. I'm going to download this set file. Now remember, this is the best result that there is from the test, and as I've mentioned earlier, they are not normally the most reliable settings, but people would go and do that and download. The true value of this exercise is actually the test template that was used, and there it is. This is the trend trader. Here's the test template. It shows which are the important settings that need to be optimized. There they are. And which ones don't need to be optimized. Also quite interesting. And they also give you the scope of each setting. So we're testing from 2 with jumps of 1 right to 21, and so on, a moving average from 1 to 8. And so there you have it. We supply you with test templates for most of our EAs. So that's where you find, and you could start off with this. We don't say this is 100% correct, but this is a good starting point. It's also a great example of a test template that you can use for that particular EA. So every EA has its own templates. Let's go and have a look at another EA, for instance. And if we look down here, the tradable ADX seems to have the best results generated. So we go and we say the tradable ADX. There it's again for March, and you can have multiple entry or single entry. We go for multiple. Again, there's the result. There's the set file that you can download. As I say, the set file might be dangerous, so be careful about that. And if you go further down here, you find the template for the tradable on ADX. So that has generated that fantastic result. But remember, we're not doing this exercise to find the best result. We're actually doing this exercise to find the total results, which we can then sort so that we can find the most robust EAs and also the EAs with the most robust settings, with the smoothest equity charts or the lowest drawdowns. But again, here we are. You can see the ticks that have been optimized and the scope that has been used to optimize these particular settings. You can see settings with drop downs. You can also do, it starts with keep all open and it starts there with close. So you can even do the same thing with drop downs. You just start with the first option and go to the last option. But there again, the point of this exercise was to show you that there are hundreds of test templates available to you already. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. Okay, now here's an example of a recent run that I did for the maximum lot EA. It is an initial run that was done. It was on tick data, so it's very accurate. And you can see the top result there was 831,000 based on a starting capital of 10,000. So I think a fantastic return. But the object that we really do have here is to say, is our test template, and I'll just go to the test template. There's the test template that I used for this particular one. Is this test template good? So the one way of telling that is to actually look at the heat maps. And this is just an overview of heat maps. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I'll give you an idea because we'll cover that in future video. But to get to the heat maps, you go to the optimization graph and you click on 2D surface. You see it's already ticked, so you click on that. I've unclicked it and now I've clicked it. Okay, so that's now active. Now here are the results of 2 of the settings. So this is one setting and that's another one. We'll just have a look. The one setting is the run target amount and the second setting is the stop loss. So they're pretty random settings, but one of the things that they can tell you is where the setting levels are wrong. So for instance, you can see all the settings on this side, the darker the color, the more important, the higher the profit. So all the settings on this side could have been avoided. So we don't need to really test from 5 to 30. We can start at 30 and go on. That's the one thing that we can notice here. The other thing that we can notice is that, can you see, these are the darker ones. It means that we shouldn't have stopped at 60. We maybe should go to 65, 70, 75, 80. So this is how you refine your template. It will tell you if you don't have the right number. So firstly, we can drop all the settings on this side. Then even these settings going up here, you can see there's been no really good results there. So we can actually only start maybe testing from 60, not 20 in future, but there are darker colors going up. So maybe this 120 should become 150 or 160. We should go test a little bit more. So that's how you refine your settings. And I can do other combinations. For instance, let's just do a stop loss combined with a take profit. All right, so we get the same picture here. We can say these ones we can actually cut down on. These bottom ones we can cut. You see, they're all just white, so they don't actually add to the situation. Here, again, this is closer to being correct because this is more in the middle. But you can see there are some dark ones there. We should be testing a few. Our settings should be a little bit higher there, and also should be a bit higher this way, just to make sure that we're not missing some profitable settings. And then you can change the combinations of settings. For instance, a run target amount, and then I'm going to just do the same thing, run low amount, and then you can start getting different pictures. But in the end, again, it says this is being over tested. You don't need to test this area. This is where the action only starts, and that block in particular says that we have it wrong. We should be testing, and we should not be stopping at 5. We should be stopping at maybe 8 to give settings that might produce even darker green ones a chance. And the same thing going this way. It's saying don't stop at 60, go to 70, go to 80, go to 90. And so this is how we use heat maps to tell us whether our template is catching the meat of the successful settings. And again, this was just an introduction, but I think you're starting to get the message. So what you would do is you'd say, okay, there it is. So you go to your template and you change them. So this 120, remember, should have, or that 120 should have been 150, and that one maybe 150. So you go and change those. Those are to start too late, so you can move them up. And that's how you adjust your template to become more, to catch the really good settings. So in spite of this template generating 800,000 there, I reckon we could most probably get it over $1 million by adjusting those settings and running this test again. The objective is to generate lots and lots and lots of these results, and we're not necessarily going to take the best one. What the best one tells us is what is the potential of this EA compared to other EAs. So in other words, if another EA, the best potential is, let's say, $100,000, and this one is generating $1 million, we know that this is a much more powerful EA. It has much more potential than the other EA that we trade. That's all that big number is. You wouldn't go and take those settings and say, I'm going to trade these. These made $1 million last year, so I'm going to use these settings. What you're going to be looking for is you're going to say, oh, this might be a big number, but just look at that drawdown number. It's just huge. So you'd rather go down the list here and find ones that have smaller drawdowns compared to their gains. And there's another video that I've made that help you find those kind of numbers. You can export this to Excel, sort it in Excel, find those kind of things, and then you look for settings that produce smooth equity charts and low drawdowns, and those are more robust. But that's the purpose of the template. The template, if you get the template wrong, it's not going to produce the results that you want to look at. So already we've seen that this template is possibly deficient. We need to make some changes. That's why in the slide I say how to create an initial template, because your template grows all the time. You create an initial one, you run the test, it tells you, oh, you're too low on this in this area, you've started too late in that area, and you start adjusting your settings to be more balanced and to catch more of the better results that are possible. And so it's an initial test, and then you refine your test using the heat maps and using Excel to sort the results into low drawdown results and that type of thing. Now, this was a bit of a rushed one, although this video might be well over 20 minutes. It's a bit of a rushed video because this is a really important topic, but the point I really wanted to make is how important it is to create quality setting test templates. If your templates are poor, you're going to get poor results. If your templates are of a high quality, your live trading is going to benefit from that, because it's going to be catching the more robust settings, and you can then use those. So this is one of the critical skills that very few, and I must say very few robot traders actually have. They do not have the skill of creating quality setting test templates. And the objective of this course is to help you develop that skill, and also to give you examples of how those templates get developed. Only when you have quality templates can you then run quality tests, and then find the best settings to move on to live demo trading and live portfolio trading. Now, I hope you found this interesting, and you might have to watch this video a few times. There will be a follow-up video in the course where I actually take the maximum lot EA and perform this process on them as an example for you to follow. From me, Alex Deploy, cheerio.